Okay, so let's review from last time, and then we'll see if we can answer anything. All right, so we had the Gemara on Brachos Daf Samach Amud Beis. We'll just read everything again because it wasn't that long. Hanichnas lebesa kise. So if you go to the bathroom, when you enter into the bathroom, presumably before you enter into the bathroom, Omer Hiskabdu Mechubadim Kedoshim Mesharse Elyon. You should say, he should say, be honored. Literally honor yourselves, right? Hiskabdu Mechubadim Kedoshim. You honored holy ones, Mesharse Elyon, servants of the Most High. Tenu kavod lelokei Israel. Give glory to the God, or give honor to the God of Israel. Harpu mimeni, leave me. Until I enter and exit, until I enter and do my desires, and then come to you. Amar Abai, so Abai said, Lo lema inishachi. Person shouldn't say this. Dilma shavki levasli. Maybe they'll leave him and go on their way. Ella lema. Rather, he should say. And then we saw from the poskim that really is cutting out this phrase, because none of the posts can bring that down the halacha. So you're cutting out not only the leave me, which seems to be the problematic thing, but leaving out harvi many, and then you're inserting shimruni is runi simchuni hamtinuli adam. So guard me, help me, support me, and wait for me until I go in and go out, because such is the way of mankind. And then you say Asher Yatzar, Kinafik Omer Baruch, etc. Asher Yatzar, right? So we had a bunch of questions, right? So the three main questions on the Maskana were, number one, davening. It seems like you're asking Malachim for stuff. So number one, asking Malachim for stuff is Asr, according to most authorities. Two, it's going against an Iker, the fifth ikr of the Rambam, where he says you shouldn't praise, daven, to serve, ask for anything from any of the intermediaries, including angels. And you should relate to God alone directly. And then three is not only is usher and going against an ikr, but it is irrational, because the Rambam says the reason why we don't do this is because all of these things are, all of the angels, or not just angels, everything other than human beings basically, are entrenched in their actions and they don't have bechira. So like, even if you held it was mutter and not against an ikr, how could you ask them? How is it sensible to ask them for anything? So that's like, those are the three main questions. And even if you say that, even if you have an answer according to like those who say it's mutter to daven to angels, then it's going to be problematic for the Rambam. And like, let's just look at the Rambam here, because that's the, oops, clicked on the wrong thing there. Where did I even click on? That's going to be the ultimate hurdle, that no matter what you say, the Rambam includes this in, oops, I clicked on the wrong thing again. Rambam includes this in the Seder HaTfilos. Slightly different version, but I don't think it's different in a way that's less problematic necessarily. He says, let's just cheat. Mechubadim, yeah. So he says, Kolzman shikanis adam lebesakisi omer kodem shikanis hiskabdu mechubadim kedoshim mesharse elyon. So that part's the same. Shimruni. So unlike our Gemara, he doesn't have all of the bakashos, and he doesn't have the duplicates. It's just Shimruni, but still, it's a bakasha seemingly. Guard me. So at the end of the day, you got to contend with the Rambam. Okay, so those were our questions on the Maskana. Then we had some questions on the Shakla Vatari and the Gemara. So first of all, what is the Havamina Maskana here? That apparently the one who introduced the halacha held it was okay to say, leave me until I go in and do what I want and then come out again. And then Abai says, no, they'll leave you. So what was the Havamina? What is Abai's problem with it? And then once Abai has a problem with it, why does he add all of this stuff? Just take out harpumi many if that was the only concern. So why is his shita, why is his objection seemingly tied to, inserting this other stuff here? So that's another question. And then there's the lingering mystery, which I think I verbally summarized the shitos last time, but I don't think we went through the mafarshim there. Why don't we say this nowadays? And I mentioned a couple of possibilities, that either the angels don't accompany us because we're not on the level, or they do but we're not sensitive, or our bathrooms are different, and we don't need to deal with that now. That was not a question that the people in the Gemara had, And so we can set that aside for now, but it's just a background question. And then in terms of the moves we made, so we only saw Rashi, and then we did overview of Malachim, and then we did the Rambam. So the Rashi says, which Malachim is it? It's Al Malachim Al Malavino, so it's the Malachim who escort you. So you're not like summoning Malachim. You're talking to the Malachim who already escort you. And he says, El Malachim Al Malavino, so who Omer, Shnemar Ki Malachav Yitzavelach. The Malach, his Malachim he commands for you, God commands for you. So that's maybe a clue. And then we did the Rambam and the Mor Nevuchim. Sorry, we did overview of Malachim. Malach is that which does malachas Hashem, that which does Hashem's malacha. We define malacha as transforming matter in accordance with form. And so practically speaking, a malach could be anything. It could be a human, it could be laws of nature, it could be the psyche, imagination, the mind, elements of nature, animals, anything that's doing what Hashem's will is. And then we looked at the Rambam in the Mor Nevuchim that he says that the two malachim who always accompany you, which seems to be what Rashi is talking about and what Chazal always talk about, that's the Yetzer HaTov and the Yetzer Hara. Because in Gemara Shabbos Kuf Yud Tes Amud Beis it says the two malachim escort you, one good and one bad, and we know that there's only one bad malach, which is the malach hamavis, who's the same thing as the satan, and he's only called bad because he leads you away from living in line with your Tzelem Elokim. So those are the facts on the table. I don't know if anyone got a chance to work on it or think about it, but open the floor for answers. What do you say? Or not even answers, just moves, something. And according to the Rambam, it is difficult. Like if you say that these are, again, Rambam doesn't say that this is the two malachim who escort you. Rashi does. So if you say that the two malachim who escort you that Rashi is talking about is what the Rambam's talking about, so then the questions are still there, right? Why are you asking them for stuff? What does it mean that they should guard you, that your Yetzer Tov and your Yetzer Hara should guard you? Why do you have to ask them to do that outside of the bathroom? A bigger question also, like this is a question I don't know if we raised explicitly. Why not ask this from God? I mean, all of the other bakashos, or most of the other bakashos that the Rambam has at the end of Hilchos Brachos and in Hilchos Tefila are bakashos from God. So like, why are we talking to the malachim?
Well, I mean, if you're talking to yourself, basically, wouldn't that answer it would definitely answer the like kfira question. It might be weird why you're not asking God, but it's not kfira to ask yourself for something.
Right. It's not, it's technically not kfira, right? Because you do have free will, right? And it's still, it's just weird though, right? I mean, and what do you mean by, I mean, I know what you mean, but what do you mean by self? Like if you take yourself and then you section off the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov, so then what is the thing that is doing the bakasha? And like, what is it expecting to get from the people who are the beings who are being, beseeched? Like, it's just, we have to explain like what that dialogue is a little bit.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, and one thing also, and this is not a question that is like intrinsic to the sugya. This is a question. Oh, by the way, all of this I prepared with Rindy. Those of you who know Rindy. I don't remember what he came up with and what I came up with, but so one of the questions we also had like lingering in the background is like, it's just weird that like, nowhere do we see any indication in the poskim, except maybe the people who address the malachim question. We don't see people worried about like avodah zarah here, and maybe I'm only asking that question because I'm a metaphysically sensitive Maimonidean, but no one says we don't say it because we're worried that you're going to start praying to angels. No one even I don't know. It's just like, but it seems to be so problematic, to address a bakasha to someone who's not God. So like, in other words, even if you can explain it, there might be a lurking question underneath of like, can you justify it? Like, can you justify why Chazal saw fit to be masakin this bakasha in this extremist way? And you don't have to answer the question. It's just, if you could, that'd be really, really nice. You want another question? Here's another question. This is also not intrinsic to the, well, you tell me if it's intrinsic to the sugya. I might mention this last time. We think of Asher Yatzar as a standalone bracha, okay? Because that's how we experience it. We go to the bathroom and then we say Asher Yatzar as like a birkas shavach, But the way that the Gemara says it is Hanichnas lebeis hakisei omer Hiskabdu Mechubadim ki nafik omer baruch Asher Yatzar es adam. And then the way that the Rambam has it also is I lose my place again. Is this the right parak? Oh, that's Montan's name. That's for this year after this. Okay. Yeah. Sheikhans Adam Leves Akise, Omer Kodem Sheikhans Hiskabdu Mechubadim, etc. The Achar Sheyete Mevar Baruch Asher Yatzar. So it's a pair. It is. We should view these two together. So the question, the side question is, how? I guess does, and if so, how does Hiskabdu Mechubadim change the way we view Asher Yatzar? Because Asher Yatzar is now an after bracha, and the entire bathroom experience is meant to be, you say this, then you go to the bathroom, and then you say Asher Yatzar. Asher Yatzar is not its own thing.
So I guess that begs the question then, why is this not a bracha then?
That's right. That's another question also. Right. That's a good question. Why is it not a bracha? Now, it's not an inherent question because let me show you the facts. Move you guys out of the way. If you go to Hilchos Brachos, Perek Yud, top of the page, yeah. Brachos acheros udavarim she'em behem psicha v'lo chasima tignu chachamim derech shavach v'hodai lahakadosh baruch hu. So other brachos, and remember, according to the Rambam, the definition of a bracha is it has shem and malchus, and devarim and statements that don't have a psicha or a chasima, meaning they don't start with barakata and end with barakata. Tignu chachamim derech shavach v'hodai lahakadosh baruch hu. Kamo brachos hatfilos shekvar kasavnum. Just like the brachos brachos hatfilos, the brachos of the tefilos that we wrote before in Hilchos Tefillah, Ve'elohim, and then he says them. So he does have a bunch of things. Some of them are brachos, and some of them are just stam bakashos. For example, so let's say like Miki's dam is a good one. I think he starts off with the brachos here. Hanichnas, here like hanichnas lemerchatz, right? When you go to the bathhouse, he writes on milfnecha d'Hashem elkashe tachni seini l'shalom v'soti ini l'shalom v'sati leni mizeh v'kil tzebo l'asi lavo. Kushiyata min merchatz omer moda ani l'fnecha d'Hashem elkashe hitziel tani min ha'ur. So you say a bakasha going in and then a hoda going out, and the same thing when you go to let blood. Omer yihirotzam milchanach Hashem elkai ezek ze lirafua ki rofe shel chinam ata ukshiyat yetze omer baruch rofe chaim. So if you can answer the question that you asked, then that'd be fine. But like if we can't answer, I'm not bothered because. To me, it's like a stom question. Like, why do Chazal choose some things to have brachos and some things not? I feel like that's like a larger question that's not going to be answered by this one thing. So it's a good question. Just I don't know if it's one that is that should bother us. Anyone have any directions? An inkling? A half a havamina? No. Okay, I don't blame you. The first time I worked in this house didn't have anything. All right, so let me show you. So the Rindy made a move. Okay, so if this works out, then we'll all take credit because we're all going to develop it. And if it doesn't work out, then we blame Rindy. Okay, because he came up with it. And I don't know if this is brilliant or far-fetched. Okay, so we were thinking about alternatives to the Rambam identifying these malachim with the Yetzer Hara and Yetzer Tov. And Rindy says, I know some malachim that the Rambam talks about that can't go into the bathroom. So that's your hint. I don't know which areas you guys have learned from the Rambam, but I'll tell you, this is in the Mishnah Torah. Okay. And of the Mishnah Torahs, this is one to know. Anyone know who the Rambam says is a a malach are malachim who guard you?
Tefillin.
Yes. Bingo. Okay, good. So let's look at that halacha. All right. So Sefer Ahava, Hilchos Mezuzah, and this one's the easy one to remember because it's 613. Hilchos Mezuzah, Perek Vav, halacha 13. Okay, so the Rambam says at the very end. Sorry, I got to move you guys again up. Let's move you down and then move you up. Okay. Chayav Adam Lihizar b'mezuzah. Person is obligated to be careful with mezuzah. Mipnei chovas hakol tamid, because it is an obligation on everyone always. Anytime he goes in and out of his house or his door, I guess, yifka b'yichudu shemo shel kadosh baruch hu. He will encounter the oneness of God. Not literally, he'll encounter the idea of the oneness of God because the Shema is in the mezuzah. V'yizkor ahavasa, and he will remember ahavas Hashem because that's v'ahavta. V'yeor mishinaso, and he will wake up from his sleep, ushegiaso b'havle hazman, and his immersion, his entrenchment in the futilities of the times. V'yeda, and he'll know she'ein sham davar ha'omed la'olam u'la'olmi alamim ela yedias tzur ha'olam, and he'll know that there's nothing that lasts forever except for knowledge of the rock of ages. Umiyad hu chozer ladato, and then immediately he will return to his mind. V'holech b'darcha meisharim, and he'll walk in the ways of uprightness. Okay, now here's the part that concerns us. Amr Chachamim, Kum Mish Yesh Lo Tefillin Barosho, Uvizroo, anyone who has tefillin on his head and his arm, V'tzitzis bebigdo, and tzitzis on his garment, Umezuzah bepischo, and mezuzah on his door, Muchzach Lo Shelo Yechta, he is assumed that he will not sin. Shahar Yesh Lo Maskirin Rabim, because he has many reminders. Ve'hein hein hamalachim shamatzilin oso milachato, and they themselves, those reminders, are the malachim who save him from sinning. Shenemar, as it says, Chone Malach Hashem Tzaviv Lirea Vayichaltem, that the Malach Hashem surrounded those who feared him and saved them. And all the Mefarshim here who comment on the grammar of this say that Malach here is Malachim, not Malach singular, because it says like Son or Bakar is a collective term. So like you can use it for the singular or the plural. So the malachim surround you and save you or release you. I guess Yichaltem is release you. But it refers to the malachim who save you from sinning, and those are the maskirim. Okay. So the question is, are those a viable candidate for understanding our Gemara according to the Rambam? That those are the malachim that we're asking to guard us. And what we'll do, if you don't mind, let's just try to solve for the Rambam, okay? And then what we'll do is if we answer for the Rambam, because the Rambam's the most pressing, he's the most demanding out of everyone who we have to satisfy here in terms of like the criteria of like making sense of this thing, because he's got all the kafira and the halacha stacked against this. So if we can answer that, then after that we can go back to the Gemara and try to figure that out. So what do you say? Does that work? What would that mean? Yeah.
Maybe it's like some sort of recognition that we don't have what tefillin does for us.
Right. So what I guess the question is like this: what are we asking them to guard us from? So what would you say? And you can use tefillin as the example.
Like I guess that the ideas that we got from tefillin should like not leave us even though we have to take them off to go into the bathroom.
Right. So tefillin you actually have to take off, right? But I guess we have to expand that a little bit, because if we're saying, I think it'd be interesting to say this is talking just about tefillin. But like, I mean, you could say that if you wanted to, right? But like, presumably you're wearing tzitzis in the bathroom, and you have, there's definitely one thing that you have talking. Let me just go here. Right, if you look at the rest of the mitzvahs in Sefer Ahava, which are all mazkirim, you have not there. We're going to go to the Chalukas Asfarim in the Hakdama when he explains which mitzvahs are in Sefer Ahava. So you have so this has the mitzvahs that are continual, that you're commanded in to love God and to remember Him constantly. Tefilin, and mila is included. So you definitely have mila also, right? So so is there a way to understand this that that it makes sense to say, to ask them to guard you? And also, what do we obviously about favorite words mean that you're asking them? So I guess I take back what I said. You could use tefillin as a model for this, but realize that tefillin you do have to take off before you go into the bathroom, whereas these other things you don't necessarily do. Maybe let's just go back for 1 second here. When you look at the Rambam and Mezuzah, okay, what do you? Okay, this is a vague question. Okay, what type of shmira do they offer? Just according to the Rambam.
Protection from fates via being reminded.
Right. So protection from hate through being reminded, right? So just take a moment to appreciate the profundity of that point there. Is let's take, I think mezuzah is probably the easiest example. That as we know just from being around people, like people think that mezuzah protects you, and it does, but the way that people think mezuzah protects you is not how it actually protects you, right? And you have that other Rambam here where he talks about it, just to review here, where he talks about the people who where is it, Dalid? Where the people who put stuff in the mezuzah, the angels' names and such. Wait, this is tefillin. Where is the mezuzah thing? Hold on. No. Is it in the same parak or is it in the later parak? Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Why am I not finding this? Yeah, there we go. Hey, Dalid. Minhag pashut shekosvin al mezuzah mibechutz connected to revach shebein parsha laparsha shin dalid yud. So it's a minhag, a widespread minhag to write on the mezuzah from the outside, opposite the space between each parsha, meaning of the two parshios, shin dalid yud. The aim is have said there's no loss in this, meaning you're not being posted on the mezuzah by writing it on the outside. Lefi shemi bechutz because it's on the outside. Of all elu shekosvin ba mibifnim shemos malachim, but people who write on the inside the names of angels or shemos kedoshim or holy names or pasuk or chosmos or a pasuk or seals. Harehin bichlal mishein lo chelik l'olam haba. So then you're included in someone who has no chelik l'olam haba. She'elu atipshin, because these fools lo dai lahem shebitlu hamitzvah. Not only were they mevatel the mitzvah, because the Rambam holds that when you write it inside, you're mevatel the mitzvah. Ela she'osim mitzvah gedola, but rather you're taking a huge mitzvah, she yichud shmo shakadosh baruch hu v'ahavaso v'avodaso, which is the oneness of God and His love and His avoda, and you're making it ki'ilu hi kamea l'hanayas atman, as if it's like an amulet for your own pleasure, your own benefit. As if as these fools imagine that this is something that benefits you in the nothingnesses of the world. So like, what is the false idea of the shmira that these people have, and like what's the true idea of shmira that the mezuzah provides according to the Rambam? How would you just summarize it in your own words? Not a trick question, just how do you understand what he's saying?
You're taking this. Sorry, actually, didn't quite catch the question. What you asked?
The question is that the Rambam is comparing in 613 he's saying the way that the mezuzah actually protects you, which is it saves you from sinning, and then in 5:4 he's criticizing these people for thinking that the mezuzah is like an amulet that protects them in the Havle Ha'olam. So I'm just asking for a clear explanation of what the difference between those two is. Mezuzah does protect you, but not the way that they think. So what are these two things? These two ways of protection.
I mean, well, I think one thing that he's saying is it's not just the having a mezuzah, that it's not like the object itself is doing some sort of magical protection.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely true, right?
That's what it sounds like he's saying to me.
That these people are modifying the object, thinking that the object protects them, and he calls it an amulet, right? So that's definitely true. So the mechanism is different, right? Is it's not through the real way is through Zechira, and this is through magic or Kamea, right? But I think there's a more profound difference in terms of the type of protection that the Tipshim seek from the mezuzah and the type of protection that it actually has to offer, like in the notion of protection itself. Like, what are the Tipshim trying to get from it, and what is the person who's learned Halacha 613 getting from it?
Yeah, I guess the Tipshim are trying to get protection in terms of like physical security, I guess.
Right.
Like in terms of their physical situation.
Right.
But the true protection that it gives, I guess, is in terms of your like keeping you in the right mindset and having the correct ideas.
Right, exactly. Right. So that's what it boils down to, is that what is the definition of harm? What is the value system? What is the definition of harm? What's the better way to put it? What is the value system of harm and benefit in which these people are operating? So the Tipshim are operating in the value system of Havle Ha'olam, right? That trying to get physical protection, or like, protection from like loss of money. I don't even know what they're trying to get exactly, but he notes in here, right, that it's literally the opposite of mezuzah. The purpose of mezuzah is to wake you up from the shigyas of the Havle Hazman, right? He uses the same term hevel here, and it's to protect you from real harm. And what's the only real harm that you can have is chait, okay? And this is like, those who have been following along with the daily Stoic readings from Marcus Aurelius, I mean, the Stoics talk about this a lot, is that no one can harm you. No person can harm you. Now, if you're someone who's like, in the uninitiated, and you hear no one can harm me, then you say, well, what do you mean? Like, people can like steal from me and they can shoot me and stuff, but that's not harming you. That's harming your body. That's harming your possessions. But you is your Tzelem Elokim. You is your ability to be Bocher B'Tov. So that would be real harm, So it's like, not only are these Tipshim distorting the mezuzah, but they're hammering themselves to a value system that is not true harm and benefit, because it's rooted in a conception of the self that is a physical being inhabiting a physical thing, a physical house, But the real harm is chait, and that's what mezuzah does protect you from. It protects you from chait by reminding you and by enabling you to like actualize, to use your bechira correctly, So I think this is the type of shmira that a person needs to realize is lacking when he is in a zone that removes himself from mitzvos. Now, a bathroom is an area that is a mitzvah-free zone, okay? And I don't mean that you can't conceive of a mitzvah that you do in it. Like, obviously, if you give tzedakah in a bathroom, then it's still a mitzvah of tzedakah, right? But it's a place that's antithetical to mitzvah. Well, let me give you two options here, okay? This is something that Brittany and I didn't work out. When we were learning last time in this year, we said that a bathroom is antithetical to Kedusha because a makom tinofes and excrement and all that stuff is like antithetical to Kedusha. And we said we might have to explore why. But the plain shot is you just can't be osek in mitzvahs when you're in a bathroom, because what are you doing in the bathroom? You're using the bathroom, So like, it's like theoretically at all other times when you're involved in stuff, then like you could be involved in mitzvahs. But when you enter into the bathroom, then you can't be involved in mitzvahs. You're taking a break from that, and kol shekain back then, when you like had to go out into the wilderness, or I don't know the wilderness, but you had to go out of the city to like use the bathroom in a place that was actually like a whole involvement, and there's a sakana there, and like it was nasty, and like you had to like they have like, I mean, this is, I guess not so much for men, but like for women, like they had means of like, the Nashim should have to talk to each other so that they don't get like attacked. It was like a real exclusion from mitzvos. It was not a place that was conducive to mitzvos, so you need shmira there, because you don't have the mitzvos to protect you. Okay. So you need it. So now the question is, what are you accomplishing by asking the mitzvos? Again, if we're saying the malachim are the mitzvos, what are you accomplishing by asking them to guard you? And can we get like further insight into all the other percussions we say here of Hiskabdu, Hiskabdu Mechubadim Kedoshim Misharse Elyon Shimruni Ad She'ekanas Ve'etze Ki Zed Darchan Shabnei Adam. So the primary question is the bakasha. What are we? Because this essentially is a bakasha, and when I say essentially bakasha, like the Rambam said that Chachamim instituted shevach, bakasha, and hoda. And if you had to classify this is definitely bakasha. That's the essence of this. It's not. I mean, you are saying shevach, but the essence is shimruni. Especially according to the Gemara's version. So what are you asking for? And then what are all these other things doing here? And then if we can deal with the ikr question, that'd be great. That'd be fantastic. Which Zev said already. Like if you're talking to yourself, then it's not a violation of ikr. So now what if we say that this is talking to the mitzvahs? Is that a violation of the ikr? So those are all the questions. Okay, we made one move, but now we need to follow through with it.
Yeah, well, I guess it might answer the you're not going to have the same distortion, I guess, when you are sort of doing this kind of bakasha, because you're sort of saying allow me to keep being focused on God, kind of.
Right.
So it's not you're not asking them for something external to helping me focus on God.
Okay,
which
good.
Is
okay, good. Right. So it is definitely a more certainly according to the Rambam, but even according to the Gemara, really, it's not a bakasha that is separate from something that orients you towards God. In fact, it is entirely about getting you to serve God because it's about the mitzvos, so that's one benefit that's going for you. Or not going for you, but that helps us to get out of the Rambam kfir problem. I want to come back to that in a second, but here, if anyone else has anything to say here. So I guess I'll lay out on the table everything that we found that we came up with, okay? And we'll sort through it and take it or leave it, okay? But first of all, just to clarify the Shimruni thing. So what is this accomplishing? Forget how will you have the right to ask God for this, okay? What is this accomplishing? So I think the answer is contained in the bakasha, okay? Is what would happen if a person went into the bathroom and didn't say this? And we should all be able to answer this because we all do this.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, what would happen if a person went into the bathroom and didn't say this?
Thanks.
It would lose focus.
Yeah, specifically in terms of what? Lose focus of what?
Oh, of God and of Torah and stuff.
Right. So I think the problem is if you went to the bathroom and didn't say this, you would not be cognizant of the danger of being in a makom with no mitzvos. Okay. And that is a real danger. And I think if we dismiss it as something that's not a real danger, then we need this. Okay. It's these are reminders that prevent you from hate. And it's, and maybe that bears contemplation on our own about what's so dangerous about that. But if we really, just for the time being, if you're not convinced, if you view mitzvos as mazkirin rabim shematzilin oso milachato, so then you got to realize if you're giving up like your life vest and going into the ocean, that's a precarious situation. So that itself, I think, reframes what it is that we're doing. Okay, is that the very act of acknowledging that we need shmira, that itself protects us when we're in the bathroom. Okay, the very fact that we are saying we are going to be in a precarious situation is an acknowledgement of the fact that like we need shmira and the mitzvos are our shmira, and that's going to be on our mind. And by bookending our bathroom experience with mitzvos, then, or in terms of mitzvos, then we're increasing the likelihood that we will not be subject to this danger, right? Before we go in, we acknowledge that we're leaving the mitzvos at the door. And then what do we do when we come out? What's the first thing we do? Immediately we say Asher Yatzar. And I think that's why I was trying to like bring up that possibility that Asher Yatzar is not just a Birkas HaShavach like anything else. Asher Yatzar is the grasping of the hand of the person who's trying to save us. That's the thing that like immediately after we exit from the bathroom from the state of no mitzvos, we could just end up going off on our way without even thinking about mitzvos, again. But we immediately have Asher Yatzar there to put us in the right frame of mind again and to focus on God again. And that's the Achar Shiyetze, that's what we say. So that's what I'm saying. That's what the mechanism here is that saying Shimruni is what effectuates the Shmira. Okay. And that's like what we're supposed to be thinking here. Second thing, and this is more connected to what Zev said, is that this is not something extrinsic to God. First of all, because the mitzvos themselves are mitzvos commanded by God. So like we're not thinking, we're not outside of the realm of God here. Okay. Some of us want to say that the fact that you say Mashar say Elyon is acknowledgement that these malachim only operate by the will of God, and so it's ki'ilu we're asking God. I don't know if I buy that, but I've heard similar explanations. You guys are familiar with the Shalom Aleichem problem, right? That some people are mocking, right? So what's the problematic stanza is Barchuni l'Shalom, right? Because the other ones you're just making statements of Shalom Aleichem, you're just greeting them. Boachem l'Shalom. That's not a bakasha from them. That's a bakasha stam that they should come in peace. And then teichem l'shalom also, but barchun l'shalom is you're actually asking them for something. So I've heard people answer. I mean, different people. There's the classic solution of omitting that stanza. There's b'shivtechem l'shalom instead of barchuni l'shalom. But then I heard some say that the fact that you're framing as mi melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu is acknowledging that this is God's shlichus, and it's no different than like when in the Torah, when it says Hamalach HaGoel Osim Mikol Ra Yivarech Es HaNa'arim V'Yivarech etc. Like it's linguistically phrased as though it's a request from the Malach, but the context makes it clear that it's from Hashem. So you can give answers like that, but I think there's also another answer, which is, or I guess this is not an answer for how you can be Mavakesh, but so Hiskabdu Mechubadim Kedoshim, okay, is an interesting lashon there. Okay, you're saying that they should be honored. So let's just pause and like appreciate what is this concept of honor, given what we're saying about these malachim, right? So we're saying the malachim are mitzvos. So what's the idea? What's the idea of being mechabed a mitzvah? And is that problematic? Like, is that the same as giving kavod to any other physical thing? So here's a clue, and this is maybe a clue that we're on the right track, or maybe it's just a coincidence. Anyone know what the Rambam talks about being mechabed a mitzvah? And remember, this is pro tip in Rambam Bekios, okay? Is if you look at the end of every section, you'll get a lot of good stuff, okay? And if you do this early on in your yeshiva career, you'll get a lot of good tidbits here. So in the end of Hilchos of Sefer Kedusha, okay? So this is in Sefer Kedusha, which is about Isuri Bia and Malchalos Asuros. And then Shechita is tacked on because of Malchalos Asuros. And then he ends Shechita with Kisoi Hadam. And then at the very end of Kisoi Hadam, he says like this. Ukishimachase, when you cover the blood, lo yichase baraglo, you should not cover it with your feet, with your foot, ela biyada, but with your hand, obasakin obakli, or with a knife or with a kli. Why? So you shouldn't treat the mitzvos in a degrading manner, and that they should be degrading to you. She'in hakavod la'atzman shel mitzvos. The kavod is not for the mitzvos themselves, ela lemisha tziva behen baruchu, but rather the kavod is for the one who commanded them. V'hitzi lanu milamashesh b'choshech, and he saved us from groping in the darkness. V'arach osam ner liyasher hamasim, and he set them up as a candle to straighten the actions. V'or lahoros nesivos yosher, and a light to instruct us in the paths of uprightness. V'chein hu omer ner l'ragli devarcha v'or l'nisivosai. As it says, a lamp for my foot is your word, and a light for my ways. So you're not giving kavod to the mitzvahs themselves, but you're giving kavod to God, and it's not just kavod stam; it's kavod as an antidote to bizoi. Now that's in the context of kisui adam. Like either you do it in a way that's mavaze the mitzvahs, or you're doing it in a way that is mechabe the mitzvahs. So here too, I think there's an argument to be made that when you say Hiskabdu Mechubadim Kedoshim, then what you're doing is you're saying that you're literally saying the mitzvahs should honor themselves, which means that you should not treat the mitzvahs in a derech bizayon. And what would be the derech bizayon here in this case?
Do them in the bathroom.
Okay, doing them in the bathroom is one bizayon, definitely, right? But what's the thing that this bakasha directly remedy is just from the way it's set up? The bizayon is not recognizing the fact that these things are shomer you. In other words, if you didn't say this, that is a bizayon to the mitzvos. Because you're not. It's like, this is a bad example, but like, the spoiled rich kid who has a personal bodyguard that like totally just neglects like what they're putting their bodyguard through. Like this bodyguard's here to save you, and to like to protect you. And if you just neglect it and like just go into into situations that don't acknowledge its protective value, so then that's like a bizoi to the bodyguard. So here too, like the mitzvos, you have to recognize that these things deserve kavod because they are mitzvos from God, and the really kavod is for God. And these things guard you, and by acknowledging the fact that they guard you, then you're counteracting the default bizayon, and you're ensuring that they're going to guard you when you emerge from the bathroom also. Now, the weird thing about this is it's personifying the mitzvahs to the point where you're literally talking to them, and you're calling them Mashar Elyon. So I started to look into this, and there are precedents for this, okay? Can you think, I can think of three, and I had help. One of these I put this question on Ask the Base Midrash on Facebook, and they were able to help somewhat. I can think of three cases where we personify mitzvos or like things that's like Mashar Elyon, and we actually talk to them. Two of them are actually in halacha, or sorry, one of them is in halacha, one of them is in minhag. I guess the other two are in minhag. But can you think of cases where we like talk to mitzvah objects or to Mashar Elyon in not a bakasha way? So one is a little known halacha because this is not, we don't interact with this. And I actually forgot to look it up in specific, so I don't remember offhand where it is. On Sukkot, they circle the Mizbeach and they talk to the Mizbeach. They say, Yofi lacha Mizbeach, Yofi lacha. It is beautiful for you, and there's, it's a question there in the sugya of like, how can you talk to the Mizbeach? But it is talking to a mitzvah object and personifying it. One you are familiar with it is, what's the personification when you make a siyum?
The Masechta that you're learning?
Yeah, you personify the Masechta.
Like,
yeah, we will return to you and you will return to us. Our mind is on you and your mind is on us. Now that's I don't know how old that bakasha is. I think it's pretty old actually, but I don't know when it started. And then like someone pointed out in Kiddush Levana, which I don't say this part of Kiddush Levana, I'm a simple guy, I just say the bracha, but like that we say like we talk to the moon. Anyone familiar with that? Let me get the quote that they said. Hold on here. Should have brought it up earlier. And now the moon is a little different. I mean, and that is getting a little dangerous, right? Because that's how avodas are literally started, right? Baruch Yotzrach, Baruch Osach, Baruch Konach, Baruch Borach, Kishem Shani Roke Kenegdach, etc. So I'm not familiar about that, but like you're talking to the moon, but you're acknowledging that God is the one who created it. Yeah. So again, I can't give an explanation for why Chazal needed to do it this way. But I'm just pointing out that it is not entirely insane to do this. And I do think that maybe, personifying the mitzvos, we do other actions to personify the mitzvos. We kiss mitzvah objects, to express love. And that's definitely a personification. That's treating them the way that we would treat a human being, and it does seem like there is a, there is a precedent in halacha for relating to mitzvos in a manner that's psychologically conducive to like solidifying our relationship with them so that they are effective for us. So I think you could reliably classify this there. Another point I want to make here is Kizeh Darchan Shel Bnei Adam. What do you think that accomplishes? I mean, because like, again, now that we realize that the mitzvahs are not cognitive, cognizant beings, like why do we have to say Kizeh Darchan Shel Bnei Adam? Or if you don't want that strong version of the question, not why do we have to say it? What is that doing in here? What are you gaining from that?
As you're recognizing that the only reason that you are going away from the mitzvahs or going into a place where you can't utilize them is because you need to take care of your needs,
right?
And like it's just like you're sort of like a fallible human being, but if you weren't, then you would never do this.
Okay, good. So that's actually I didn't actually distinguish that from my approach, but it is a good approach. So that is basically saying like, yeah, I don't want to leave you, and I realize like I'm not like intentionally willingly putting myself in this precarious situation, but I have to do it, so that's a perfectly fine answer. I had a slightly different way, which is that when you say Kizeh Darchan Shel Bnei Adam, you are also acknowledging that this is God's will, that you're not just a mitzvah doing being, you're also a physical being with physical needs. And that like, if you were a malach, then you'd be able to constantly serve God without any interruption, but you are a human, and the human being has a Tzelem Elokim, but it also has an animal body. And like, this is one of the features of an animal body, that you have to take care of your needs. So you're acknowledging, you're framing this as kind of in the same way as when we did the bracha of Hamapiel. Hamapiel, you have to sleep. Okay. And we all know that you have to sleep, but there are different ways to frame it. You can frame sleep as an escape from reality. You can frame sleep as it's something that I just have to do, or you can frame it as recharging myself for a waking life of avodas Hashem, and that's what the bracha of Hamapiel is doing. So I think you're doing something similar here, is that before you go into the bathroom, you frame it as Zed Darchan Shel Bnei Adam. This is part of the design of the human body. And then when you exit, you say Asher Yatzar, which, even though we haven't learned it yet, is talking about how that reflects Chachmas Hashem, So I think it is, and that's not mutually exclusive to what you said, Zev. Like it's you are acknowledging that the only reason you're doing this is because you have to. And I'm just taking it one step further and saying, why do you have to? Because that's how God designed you, because you're a physical being, and you have an excretory system or whatever, and so I think that fits in as well. So what do you think of the approach? That's all I got.
Is there a reason we don't say this nowadays?
So that's the other part of the sugya, which we can do next time. And this may cause problems for that because when you look at the reasons why we don't say it, it doesn't seem to fit into this pshat, And so I feel like when we learn the reasons why we don't say it, we might get into other interpretations of what this is. And I'd say according to this, this seems like a pretty important idea, And did I tell you? I don't think I told you my how I came up with a crafty way to say this without violating the minhag. I haven't asked for a psak on this yet, but you know how there are shitos that you shouldn't say like the kedusha in brachos kriya shema or the kedusha of uva l'tzion when you're without a minyan, So they say that you can do it if you say it according to the tamim, So that way you're doing it b'toras kriyas psukim, So I was thinking like this: is what if instead of saying this before you go to the bathroom, you open up your Mishnah Torah and say, V'cholzman sheikanes adam lebeis hakisi omer kodem sheikanes Hiskabdu Mechubadim Kedoshim. So you're saying it. You're just reading halachos, which is a totally legitimate Hilchos Talmud Torah practice. But you're effectively reviewing the ideas and saying it anyway, And you're avoiding all of the halakhic problems of those who say that there are halakhic problems with this. I haven't asked for psak yet, but I think it's a crafty, it's a maneuver b'reshus Torah solution, but to be more involved in Torah, not to be away from Torah,
Genius.
Yeah. But
is there a problem otherwise?
I think the only problem would be, my guess is if you ask Rebbe, he'll say it's going against the minhag, and it is going against the minhag. I mean, the Shulchan Aruch says don't say it, And I don't know any posek who says you say it. I think the most contemporary posek who say you say it are the Rambam and the Torah. But I don't know any Achronim who say you say it, and in Aruch HaShulchan, I don't think he mentioned any who do. I bet the Yemenites say it, because they kept, according to the Rambam, but I don't know anyone who says it, or says that. Okay, so think about the idea. I think I'd like to spend one more session on this, going through that question of why we don't say it anymore, and maybe getting insight into that. I'd also like to answer the Gemara, if possible. I'm going to end a little bit early because guess what? I gotta go to the bathroom, and if you have a problem with that, Zed Darchan Shel Bnei Adam. Okay, so those who are in the Mishlei Shir, then
go, girl.
I'll see you in the Mishlei Shir, and remember it's on a different Zoom link. So bear that in mind. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Later. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.